Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Most Excellent Entertainment. My guest this week is the creator of the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. He is a podcaster, an author, a wrestling historian, um, and I am very happy to have Mr. Tony Richards on the podcast today.
Thank you, Keith. Man, it's good to be here, brother. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now, getting to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. This is good. I'm a longtime wrestling fan, so I'm excited to dig into this.
Yeah, well, I am too, and that's a good thing because that means we're older guys and we've had a
Yeah,
nice life. So,
yeah, for sure, man. Um, One of the things that I wanted to talk about uh, right away, because this is something that I've always kind of where's the line between an independent wrestling company and a wrestling territory?
well, classically defined, or at least the way that I define it, and I think it's the way it's been defined. It's just I don't know that anybody's ever really put words around it to frame it. But to me, a territory is a geographical area that is limited by television exposure.
Okay.
In other words, the television that carries the wrestling show for the promotion defines the territory. So in the old days, before cable and before internet, um, usually there was a central booking office. So there was a central office that had a booker and a promoter that people looked at as owners of the territory. And they had local guys in every town called promoters who would promote the wrestling show. Some of those towns were run weekly, some of them were run bi weekly, some of them were run once a month. And
Mhm.
then you had other towns in the geographical area that were run as spot shows. They were either fundraisers for local schools or there was a local guy there in that town who wanted to run a wrestling show once or twice a year. So to me, that's what makes up a territory is it has a booking office, it sends out talent. They have a weekly loop that sometimes can be monthly and sometimes can be spot shows, and it's limited by where the television reaches.
Okay.
So in the old days, they would have a central town. For example, Tennessee, where I grew up with the Tennessee territory, is probably not a great example because it was so huge. But
Right.
let's take West Texas for example. So Amarillo was the central town for that so-called territory, and they taped a weekly show on Saturday afternoon at KODA Television Channel 10 in Amarillo, and then that tape would go out to Albuquerque, it would go out to El Paso, it would go out to Odessa, it would go out to Lubbock, it would go out to Abilene and San Angelo, and then they had a little local town just a few miles south of Amarillo called Hereford, Texas. That was their Saturday night town, and that was their week. They would send out the tape, sometimes with the boys, and sometimes that tape would run the next week with the next week's angles and storylines and such. And the live show that week would be based on the previous week's television show. So to me, that's kind of the operational definition of what a territory is.
Okay, so for example, something like Southwest Championship Wrestling, which ended up a lot of people don't realize this, but it was on USA Network
Hmm.
in the early days of cable.
Right.
But people definitely would consider Southwest to be a territory, right?
Yeah, I think that people call them that because of the era we were still in. Like
Okay,
for me, the territory era went till about 1995.
okay,
Um, about the time Hulk Hogan showed up at WCW. That's about the time the territories were finally finished. I think the Memphis territory that I grew up in, I think finished up in '97
hmm,
when the Monday Night Wars were going on. So Joe Blanchard had that cable slot for Southwest Championship Wrestling, which gave him national access, but he didn't run nationally. He still just ran around San Antonio. He only promoted shows around the San Antonio geographical area. So even a that's kind of a wrestling promotion in transition as we were going from territories to national expansion, because they had a national television slot, but they still ran like a territory.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That makes sense to me. Yeah, because I grew up in the Northeast and I feel like there was a lot of companies that were operating as independent uh, booking outside of a territory system pretty early up there. Uh, like ICW and trying to think of some of the other ones that were up that way.
Yeah,
Well, early
I think a lot of
ECW.
those I think a lot of those existed around the country.
Yeah,
You had back in the days when the NWA was really strong, the National Wrestling Alliance, when it was really in its heyday, those would have been called outlaw promotions
sure.
because they were outside the alliance. But as the NWA started fading after 75 or 76 or so, and other people, it became a weaker entity as far as enforcing who was in wrestling and who wasn't. And the
Hmm.
rules got a lot more slack. You saw more and more of those, popping up. I think 76 is a year that's kind of a milestone where we had a lot of different promotions. They weren't successful. They didn't last long, like the IWA and the UWA in Nashville, Tennessee.
Sure.
But we were going to have that now on up until current day. And then in
Okay.
the 90s, independent wrestling the seeds of it really started, springing up because guys saw Smoky Mountain and they saw ECW and they thought, hey, we could do this too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, so because territory wrestling was so regional, um, there was different styles of wrestling in different areas of the country. And I
Hmm.
think that's also something that's really, really cool. Like Memphis kind of had more of almost what we would think of as like a hardcore style today. Um,
Well,
and
that goes. I'm sorry. Did you
oh
were
no,
you?
go right ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So that goes all the way back to 1934, where Roy Welch came from West Texas. A whole lot of what we came to know in territory wrestling in the 70s and the 80s came out of West Texas because the original Dutch Mantel, he trained 4 or 5 or 6 guys who went out and worked in other parts of the country, and they took that West Texas rough and tough brawling style called Texas wrestling. They took that out to other places, and then they molded it and shaped it to that geographical area. So, for your example, Roy Welch, basically he and his brothers invented the Southern wrestling style where the baby faces would get the crap kicked out of them and get juice and I mean really get shoot beat up for real once or twice to get the story going,
Yeah.
and then the heel would be this cheating, lying, stealing little guy who was driving the crowd wild because the referee never quite caught him doing his dastardly deeds,
Right.
and that just kept evolving until what we would see. I mean, Roy Welch mentored Jerry Jarrett, so you would see a lot of those original roots of that Southern style, and then Jerry then modified it and augmented and put his own spin on it, and then that's basically what evolved into what we know as Memphis wrestling, where you had really charismatic but sympathetic baby faces, and you had really dastardly and guys you really wanted to beat up as the heels.
Right. Right. And keeping kayfabe was so important back then. Speaking of like people wanting to get beat up, I mean, heels would have their cars set on fire,
Oh, sure, yeah.
be stabbed, death threats to their families. Um,
Well, we did a show this week on Florida,
yeah,
1976, and we had Steve Kern on, And that year, the summer of '76, he had one of the hottest feuds ever in wrestling with Bob Roop. And it
Okay.
was over his dad. His dad was a decorated military veteran and a Vietnam POW. And he had just come back to Florida that '73, I think 3 years prior. And it was a big deal. It was on all the media coverage of him coming back to Tampa and back to Florida, the conquering hero. And Bob Roop comes out on television, who was also in the military as a medical technician. And he called him everything you can imagine: coward, wasn't very smart. That's why he got caught. That's why he got imprisoned and all of that stuff. And that feud got so hot. I mean, Bob had direct death threats in Miami for his life. And Steve was telling us that the crowds were so hot, um, wanting to get to him, that they had, and they didn't have a lot of security back in those days, and
Sure.
just the barest barricades in some arenas. So, as a fan who was going to wrestling back in the '70s, I know what that was like because I was right there in the first or second row. I mean, guys would end up in your lap regularly.
Yeah.
That was not a rare occurrence for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching World Class on television, and the fans would just mob the ring and mob the wrestlers as they were walking. Like that kind of stuff would never fly. Now, I even went to a WWF event in the early '80s where security was so minimal. It was at a college gym, and I mean, we just were running up, and people were hugging the wrestlers while they were walking to the ring, and it's a
Yeah,
lot different.
I mean, people can't believe. I mean, well, they believe me, but it wows them
Yeah,
that I used to stand in the back of the National Guard Armory in Paducah, Kentucky, and regularly talk to Randy Savage, and
right.
regularly
True.
talk to Bob Roop and Bob Orton Jr. and Ronnie Garvin, and you know, in every town there's regular fans that they know come every week, and they get to know them, and they get to be somewhat friends or whatever. I can't claim that I was really friends with them, but they knew who I was enough to have a conversation or to say hello. And that, I mean, that's not going to happen today.
Yeah,
I mean, rarely you will see, the Usos will come through the crowd, or Seth Rollins will come through the crowds,
right.
but they're just coming through the crowd to get to the ring. I mean, I'm talking about just hanging out. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's like a designated path where it's clear and there's security and cameras, and
Yeah.
not to jump in there.
And most of the time it's little kids,
Yeah,
that are trying to get to them. So there's not a lot of danger there. And, that's just, that's just what today's product is. And for the, I talk about this all the time, for the 9 or 10 or 12-year-old kid today, this is forming in their minds what wrestling is.
yeah, yeah,
And good for them,
yeah.
good for them.
Yeah, it's definitely it's different. But I mean, I can imagine seeing it through, like, to me, wrestling was superheroes in real life. And
Right.
I'm sure that for a kid, it's still kind of the same thing.
Oh, if you would have come into my bedroom when I was a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, you would have found like 5 stacks of stuff. I would have had comic books. I would have had baseball cards. I would have had Street and Smith's baseball and football annual, for pro baseball and pro football and pro basketball. And I would have had wrestling magazines and music magazines. I would have had a
Yeah,
stack of Cream magazines and stuff like that.
yeah,
And so when I first turned on the television as a 9-year-old kid, my parents got me a small black and white television for Christmas. And when I turned it on, we had a UHF station there in Kentucky, and we had 3 network televisions.
mhm,
And when I found wrestling, I'm just like, holy cow, man, this is like Superman, Batman, Spider Man, all really happening right here on my TV. And
yeah,
Don and Roy Big Mouth Bass and their manager
mhm,
Ma Bass, and she's hitting people with a brick in her purse, and I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love it, and I've loved it for, 54 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've been watching wrestling for 48, so it's a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Long
man. I mean,
time, man.
and that's the thing, and you can have, you can have what I call like a conflict if you're not willing to accept it for what it is when you're watching it.
Yeah.
You will have a conflict in your mind because the foundations of what it's supposed to be was formed back in the territory era, like you and I were just talking. And there's a huge amount of transition between the two. And the way I can watch the modern product today is I just watch it for what it is,
Yeah.
and it's not what I grew up on, and it's not what I particularly enjoy, but I can't help it. I still like wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and honestly, I find it, it- there's stuff in, TNA, um, and that still feels like a throwback to me. Some of the
Yeah.
smaller things. I mean, it's just
Well,
I don't know.
I was telling somebody the other day, some of those CM Punk and Roman Reigns promos
Yeah.
remind me of my wrestling. It reminds me of the old days, and I can get invested in that. And I think CM Punk is one of those guys, and Roman too, to a certain degree. He's one of those guys that when he does a promo, you sit there and you're like, I don't think anybody wrote that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's coming from him, and I think that might be pissing Roman off, a little bit.
Right. Sure.
Like
Sure.
I wonder what those guys said to each other after, and
Yeah.
I can get involved in that, I can get immersed in that, and if there's 10 minutes or 15 minutes of that on a show,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I,
Definitely.
I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of my wrestling to watch, hours.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think people don't really get that too. Like, people talk about how there's so much wrestling now, but I remember there was a time when the expansion was really starting, when a lot of the territories were pushing to get on national TV, and
Hmm.
like there was literally 4 or 5 hours of wrestling every single day, and then like 20 hours on the weekend. But it was so varied and so different, and I do miss that. I miss being able to watch like Hawaii,
Yeah. Yeah.
and California wrestling and
Well,
AWA, and
going back to your thought about the styles,
yeah, yeah,
it's I think the bookers and the promoters were smart enough to give the people in their area what they wanted.
yeah,
So, in West Texas, they wanted a bunkhouse fight. They wanted to see two cowboys get mad at each other and beat the crap out of each other, and Texas death matches were born out there.
yeah,
Whereas, the Southern style was a little bit an offshoot of that, as I mentioned earlier. But as I've told people, they say, "What's Southern wrestling?" I said, "Southern wrestling is if you go to a honky tonk bar on a Saturday night and you walk in, there's invariably going to be two guys there at a pool table that probably end up going to yell at each other and get into a fight. That's what
yeah,
Southern wrestling is.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
is is basically an environment that is hot and exciting that's going to break down into a fight, and you're going to want to see it. That's to me, that's what that is. Whereas to me, the wrestling in the Northeast and somewhat to the Midwest was more technical.
yes,
It was more hold for hold. It was more bigger guys, and not that it wasn't exciting. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've had biases against Bruno for years
really,
that I have recently confronted because you get something in your head and you're like, well, that's just the way that is, and you don't really look at it and you don't really analyze it and study it. But as I've done this Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel show, and as my co-host on the WWF stuff, Steve Gennarelli, and I, we have to prep for that year or that era. So I watch a lot of Bruno matches, and when I'm watching his matches, I'm like, he really did wrestle Like he
Yeah.
really did vary his style based on his opponent. And I think I probably had a bias in my mind of like, well, I've seen Bruno wrestle, and that's what the way he wrestles, you know. But if he was wrestling Waldo von Erich, he wrestled a certain way. If he's wrestling George Steele, he wrestled a different way. And I give him a lot more props today than I probably did before because growing up in the South, it didn't seem as exciting to me as
Mm.
what we saw every week, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's funny because, like I said, I grew up in the Northeast, and the first wrestling company that I really got into was the AWA, actually.
Oh,
Uh, WPIX, Channel 11, used to carry an AWA show. Um, and that was kind of the first wrestling that I really saw, and then the WWF shortly after.
yeah,
But yeah,
I probably
so
didn't. I probably didn't give the AWA as much credit until I got to be really close friends with George Shire,
yeah.
and George exposed me to all of this rich AWA history. Where, I mean, some of the world's greatest wrestlers went through
Oh
there.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, for sure. But I always really liked the technical the technical stuff. Like to me, watching people exchange holds and then you throw something in like exciting, like a big comeback or something like that. Like that was always what I really liked. Um and so
So if it was Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson, you were in
oh
heaven. You
yeah,
know.
of course. Yeah, yeah. Or like, Rick Martel and Sharuda. That's
Oh
such
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
great match. Such a great matchup, or Bockwinkel and Hennig, any of that stuff. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a guy that can't change my mind. I mean,
yeah,
I went back in 1985 all last year and watched all the Rick Martel stuff, and I'm like, man,
oh,
I have underrated him all this time. I mean, he
yeah,
was a really pretty awesome world champion, and following that whole story and all, I wish they would have given Saruta a little bit more,
yeah,
of a exposure.
yeah,
I think he could have gotten over here a lot better if they would have handled that a little bit differently. But we're all armchair Brookers, you know.
of course, yeah, yeah. So going back a little bit and talking about Texas death matches,
Yeah,
you're currently working on a book, right, about Dory Funk Sr.
yeah. I've really committed myself. I've been working on it for 3 or 4 years, and the first year or two was just all research, you know. And then I got involved with so many different things. I started up the time tunnel, which takes up a lot of my time because I decided if I want to be a better writer, I'm going to have to write.
Yeah,
And everybody that anytime I go to do anything, Keith, I try to find the best in the world and study what they do. And I studied Stephen King and I studied Stephen Pressfield and guys like that. And they all say, if you're going to write, you're going to have to write. And so I thought, well, what's a good way for me to write every day? And so that's when I came up with the Daily Chronicle. I'm like, I'm going to publish a daily wrestling history newsletter, and it has expanded and it's taken up more of my time, and I publish a lot more of my research in it every single day. So that slowed down the funk book a little bit. But and then the other thing is, and I think if you talk to many authors of wrestling books, they'll tell you this too. There comes a time where you have to say, no more research. Like,
yeah,
I've got everything, and I'm not even going to be able to get all of this in the book. But as I got closer to the family
mhm,
and got closer to Terry Funk's daughters, and I got closer to Marty Funk and Dory Jr., and picking up things they would tell me and say, and I'd pull on those threads and find so many more things. I had to say, okay, this is it. I'm gonna just finish the book. So this year, I've committed. In the next few months, I'll be finished with it. And right now, I'm just putting the final touches on it. But it's such a rich and amazing story. I'm honored that for whatever reason, the universe picked me
yeah,
to write about a guy like him, because I feel like I know him, even though he died the year after I became a wrestling fan at 9 years old. I mean, I'd Never, I only know him anecdotally through research and study and talking to people who knew him and all of that. But pretty amazing guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and speaking about the time tunnel, it's like a magazine every day. I mean, you really there's so much information and research that goes into that, or at least it seems like it. I mean, it's very
Oh, yeah, it is.
thorough. It's a really cool read. Like if anybody isn't subscribed to the newsletter, they definitely should.
Thank
It's
you. Yeah, it's a Substack. It's Pro
yeah,
Wrestling Time Tunnel Substack. And it is, and I've probably at any given time got 30 or 40 of those features in progress,
man.
that I'm working on, that I'm adding to, and that I'm refining. And then, like, I published a Duke Kiyomuka biography today, and
Uh-huh.
I worked on that for 6 months. And again, one of those things where it's like, man, I know I can find just a little bit more about his tag team run with Hiro Matsuda.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then I just like, okay, his birthday is coming up next week. I'm just going to publish it. I'm just going to put it out there. I can always add to it later, or publish something else on him, or do a feature on the tag team or something. I get in
right.
these brain hijacks, where it's like
Yeah,
I gotta get a little bit more on this guy, when I got more than anybody would ever want to know. you know, but
yeah.
but I appreciate the props. I really
Of
do.
course,
It's
man. Yeah,
it's it's a lot of fun, and it's what I've always wanted to do. When I got to a place in my life where I'm kind of semi-retired from the executive coaching practice, I've still got 4 or 5 clients that I work with every week, but a lot of my time and energy is being funneled into this right now.
yeah. It's funny because right before we started this interview, I got the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel in my email, and I was like, "Man, he is busy." It was
Yeah,
like,
the reason you got it in your email right before we went on is because I published a special deal, because Charles over at Wrestling Playlist, who's a good friend of mine, who's basically the world's foremost curator of wrestling video footage, it does a newsletter on wrestling on video, Wrestling Playlist. He published a special deal that went out, and I got it in my box, and it was about WWE Vault put out a new Omni show.
oh, okay,
And I'm
cool.
like, okay, well, I need to get Charles' thing over on my thing so I can tell my subscribers about this, because we want WWE Vault to know that us old school fans are out here and we're watching, and we want them to see the numbers watching these shows, so they'll release more stuff. So that
Yeah.
that was the ding you got this morning right before you
Okay.
got in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to open it. I just saw. I was like, "Whoa!" Right before we're going on, he's publishing something else. So
I thought, man, I can get this out right before I do Keith's show. I
nice.
can do this right before that.
That's
But
awesome.
you never know. I mean, we're losing guys all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and that's another thing. There's so many other great historians and writers out there who we're all trying to get these guys stories, and we're all trying to get all this stuff written and documented, because there is so much that has been lost,
Yeah.
that we will never have or never know. And I love having guys on my show like Jerry Oates. I
Hmm.
love guys like Mike George. I love guys like Bobby Simmons. I mean, they got all these great stories, and I want to get them recorded and on podcasts and on interviews so that people can hear them. I mean,
Yeah.
Jerry Oates was telling me on a show we were doing, and we get to do them about different territories too that a lot of people are not familiar with, like Kansas City.
Sure.
He
Yeah.
spent 2 years in Kansas City as its top star,
Right.
and he was telling me the story about Bob Geigel coming to him and telling him that there was a chance that he might be able to be the guy that gets the title from Dory Jr. to Jack Briscoe.
Oh
That
wow.
ended up being Harley Race, but
Yeah.
Bob Geigel went and said, Jerry, I think I might be able to do this for you if you think you're interested. I've never heard that story before.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know that it's ever been out there before, but Jerry
Yeah.
trusted me to tell it to me. And
That's
that's
awesome.
the kind of stuff that when you get it and you're like, this is all worth the work.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just get you're sort of like a gold miner. You'll dig through dirt and sift through creek water and everything else just to find, that cool thing,
Yeah. It's funny because so I used to run a company and I had Raven come on a show and
Cool.
we were talking and you talked about forgotten territories and things like that.
Hmm.
When I lived in Atlanta, Joe Pedicino had this show.
Yeah.
Oh my, it was like 8 straight hours of wrestling. Every
I had a Twitter post that blew up the other day because
yeah.
it was the anniversary of Joe passing.
Hmm.
And I put out a tweet that I copied that idea.
Oh
I,
wow.
I was running a broadcasting company in Paducah, Kentucky. I had a television station as part of this radio group I was running.
Yeah.
And I talked to Steve Beverly almost every week, who wrote a newsletter called Matt Watch.
Okay.
And Steve's newsletter was all about television and wrestling. And so he told me, I mean, there's no way I'm going to see the Pedicino
Right.
wrestling block, but he told me
Right.
about it. And so I thought, I'm going to do that on my television station. So for about 2 years, I copied that very thing on my television. I hosted a 8 hour block of wrestling on the
That's
television.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Atlanta for a year, and so I got to see that for a year. And there was a company on there, Georgia All Star,
Yeah.
and so I was talking to Raven about his feud with Buff Bagwell and Chick Donovan over who had the best body in Georgia.
I remember that angle.
Yeah, and he was like, nobody ever talks to me about that.
Right.
I
Right.
was like, I was
Well,
like,
well,
it's forgotten, but it was, yeah,
unless you were in Kentucky about that time, or you were around Atlanta about that
yeah,
time, you probably never saw it, you
yeah.
know. But
It's crazy.
I remember that angle, and I remember that little promotion. I think I can't remember who's. I know Jerry Blackwell had one down
Yeah, he
there.
did. Yep, yep.
I know Ann tried to run again. Ann Gunkel tried to run again. I don't know who
Right.
was behind that, but Jody Hamilton had a little
Hmm.
promotion. So I
Yeah,
don't know which one was Georgia All Star, but I do remember that.
yeah. It's just,
That was awesome. And
yeah,
I remember thinking, and he still kind of looks that way today. I'm like, God, Chick Donovan still looks wonderful.
man. Yeah. Raven told me Chick Donovan had an invisible dog, and he
Uh,
just said it, just like random. He's like, "I'm so glad that you remember that." Chick Donovan had an invisible dog,
oh my gosh,
and I was like, "Okay."
that's hilarious.
Didn't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
It's got kind of a cool idea. I may do that
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember now, like, so at first I was confused, and then I talked to a friend of mine. He was like, "Well, yeah, don't you remember in like the 70s and 80s, they would sell these leashes that would walk themselves, and people would walk them like they had a dog." And I was like,
Oh my
"No."
gosh.
I was like, I was like, not,
So
but yeah.
what was the first sort of confrontation or conflict that you saw as a young fan that really was got like, man, this is the greatest stuff ever?
I mean, it was the Freebirds and the High Flyers probably that
Oh, on
really got me
AWA,
hooked.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I mean, before that, I was kind of watching wrestling, but.
That's another a lot of people forget about that Freebird run in 85 or 86,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they were also in Tennessee then too. They
right.
were going back and forth because that was one of the times that Jarrett was affiliated with the AWA, and they were coming down to Memphis also.
Yeah. And I mean, there was stuff that would catch my eye. I mean, here and there, but really, like, I was about 10, 11 years old, so I was in the right spot to really, you know, I love this.
Yeah.
But I had been watching wrestling. I started watching wrestling when I was about 4. So, but
What was the
just
first live show you went to?
oh yeah, the first live show was an AW or I mean a WWF house show at Ithaca College.
It's
The
a
main
spot show.
Yeah, the main event was the Junkyard Dog and Davy Boy Smith with Morocco and Orton. So it was 86 ish probably.
Wow.
Um,
That's awesome, man.
yeah, yeah. I still remember that whole show, and I got to see when I was in high school. I went to a NWA spot show at the Syracuse War Memorial, or not the Syracuse War Memorial, Syracuse Fairgrounds. They weren't running at the War Memorial, but Syracuse Fairgrounds. And I ended up writing an article about it for my school newspaper about the psychology of the show, because Mike Rotunda wrestled Doctor Death,
Oh wow,
and in Syracuse, Mike
Mike
Rotunda,
Rotunda's the man.
yeah, man, he literally just walked out and did a little thumbs up.
They were doing the Varsity
The
Club
crowd went
gimmick,
nuts.
right? Yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah. So
that's
he was
awesome. Yeah.
monster heel on TV, but man, came out to the Syracuse Orange fight song, and you know,
You know,
but
I've interviewed so, and I know you have too, and you'll
yeah,
probably this will probably ring true with you as well. I talked to so many people about their first wrestling experiences,
yeah,
and it's amazing the little details they can remember about it.
yeah,
They remember every little vivid thing about their first
yeah,
wrestling
definitely,
show.
yeah,
That's you know that's getting deep into your psychology. No wonder we like it 40 and 50 years later.
yeah, for sure, man. It's definitely, like I said, I don't remember a lot of the early wrestling that I watched on TV. I just remember liking it a lot, superheroes
You
and what.
mentioned that you like TNA because it's got some territory feel to it. Like
I did. Yeah.
what's going on over there that you really find enjoyable?
Oh man, well, Frankie Kazarian, the guy is just such a good heel. I mean, he's just so good at making people hate him.
Hmm.
He's so I love Eddie Gilbert and got the shirt on, but I see that, the Eddie Gilbert-ness in Frankie. Like he's
You
the
know,
king.
I grew
He's
up.
the king of TNA. So
This is really going to date me, but I grew up watching his dad. You know,
sure, sure,
I mean,
sure.
I went to live shows where Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin were tag team partners. You
Oh,
know,
that's
so
awesome. Yeah.
um,
The the first
is that what's on A&E now?
uh AMC. Yeah.
AMC, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
AMC, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
alphabet soup. I can't remember
Yeah,
all
it's
the.
all over the place.
Yeah, so is that a good? You like that show, or
I do. Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, and then,
I've not checked it out yet, but I'm going to now that you say that.
okay, Mike Santana is the
I
champ.
finally found someone whose opinion I value, so
Oh,
I
I
will.
appreciate that.
If you like it and it reminds you of some good old stuff, then
It
that
does.
tells
Yeah.
me I need to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a hard nose, um, gutsy quality to it, I guess.
Cool.
That I don't see a lot in
That's missing.
AEW and WWE. I just don't see it. So,
Yeah, that and like I said before, that Punk and Roman stuff. It's like
mhm.
it it's going kind of over there for a little bit.
Yeah,
What you're talking about. And
yeah,
if they're doing that, if they're capturing that for like a whole episode,
yeah.
I'm in on it.
That's, I mean, that's how I feel. You may watch it and be like, "Oh, Keith is out of his mind," but,
Oh, I don't know.
but I feel like it just feels like strong wrestling to me, which I think is missing a lot.
So
Um,
have you been to one of their shows, or have they
I
do
would
they
love
come
to
anywhere
go.
around where you are? Or?
They have come to Ohio a few times, but I haven't been out to a show. I probably should check one out. I don't I don't get out as much as I used to, you know.
And
Uh
none of us do.
yeah,
I sat out on
between
the back patio last night with a cigar and a little glass of bourbon. You know, that's my big night. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I do this. This is how I communicate with the world now, and it's
yeah.
working. And my son, I had a son late, so I gotta.
That's Casey, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got an 11-year-old running around that I
Does Casey like
have to keep
wrestling?
up with. Um, he likes it, but he doesn't like it as much as I wish he did.
What does he like?
Basketball. He's a big
Oh,
basketball guy.
well, I mean, I was born in Kentucky, so you know
Yeah, yeah, and
that.
he was born in Indiana because that's where I am now. So
Oh my God, there's no two states. Well,
yeah,
maybe North Carolina, but outside of that, there's no two states to be born in that you're not going to like basketball. You
yeah,
know.
for sure. There's so many Wildcats fans here too, which is I didn't
Well,
really.
I
I'm
mean,
down in the southern part of Indiana, so there's a
yeah,
lot of Wildcats
oh
fans.
my gosh. Well, I used to go to the Coliseum in Evansville.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
that's where I used to go every Wednesday night to see
Nice,
the Tennessee wrestling.
nice.
Um, yeah, I mean the geographical borders of Indiana and Kentucky and North Carolina. There's
Yeah,
fans on across the borders, and there's even couples that are married. That one of them wears red and one of them wears blue, and
sure, sure. It's funny. So when I watch wrestling, I think about it. I try not to think about it like a TV show. I try to think about it like I always have. Like it's a fight. It's stories, that are going to lead to a fight.
yeah,
Um, and so a lot of times, I'll play along with what's happening just because it's fun or whatever. So
well,
when
right.
John Cena was doing his heel thing, uh, I was singing as he was coming to the ring, in our house. The John Cena sucks. And Casey, John Cena's favorite wrestler, or one of them,
Oh wow.
and he was so mad at me.
Mm.
He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like,
Well, I'm
uh,
not sure they ever really turned him. You know what I mean? I
"Yeah, it
mean,
was
his
interesting
fans, yeah.
way they did that." But Case
But
did
I'm just
not
saying the
enjoy.
majority of his fans, like Casey, never went with the turn.
Yeah, he was like, "What are you doing? You can't say John Cena sucks."
Right?
I was like, "Okay, buddy,"
I mean, I
but
think it was
Casey,
really kind of like the small percentage of people that never liked him.
right? Sure.
But other than that, I'm not sure anybody else really ever considered him anything other than John Cena.
Yeah, I think part of it was they let him say too many things that the audience could relate to. And it's kind of the same thing when just now when they're trying to turn Randy Orton heel right now, but he's saying things that people are like, yeah, we get it, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of,
yeah. They're
yeah,
they're they're like on his side.
yeah, yeah, it's tough,
It's not
but
like what you'd think of as a traditional heel, where
right,
people
right,
are like, that guy's arrogant and doesn't really have a reality.
yeah, yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, obviously, I'm old school, like, but my favorite heel is the heel who will get pinned and then say it was doctored footage. I
You
didn't
probably
lose.
you
That's the
mentioned
best.
well, one of the biggest and best heels of all time. You
Yeah.
mentioned his promotion earlier, but Tully Blanchard,
Oh
I
man.
always thought was amazing at that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought, and he said before that his number one goal was to be the biggest heel.
Yeah.
And man, was he good.
Yeah. I think one of the best things about Tully Blanchard is, you couldn't deny that he was a great wrestler.
Right.
And that's, same with Ric Flair and those guys. Like you can't say, well, they can't wrestle.
You
You know.
you brought up Amarillo earlier, and
Yeah.
and and I'm often asked, what footage would you like to see, or what television would you? And there's only like 3 or 4 film clips of Amarillo television even in existence, unless there's a bunch in the WWE vault we don't know about.
Yeah.
But
Who knows? Yeah.
but what I was going to say related to what we were discussing,
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to 1977. Ted DiBiase and Tully Blanchard had been on the same football team at West Texas, and they
Right.
were in a program together in Amarillo.
Right.
And
Oh wow.
those interviews on television and those matches between DiBiase and Blanchard that early on, they're young, they're energetic, they were trying
Yeah.
to do a. I wish I could see all that.
So I remember watching the Southwest Championship Wrestling, and Manny Fernandez was about to wrestle a young upstart, and it was Terry Allen and Magnum TA.
Yeah,
And I can't remember who was on commentary, but he was like brother for he kept calling everybody brother, so maybe that'll clue it in a little bit. But he kept going. Now, young Terry Allen, he's got a great future, but he's nothing compared to Brother Fernandez. And they were just really playing up how good Manny Fernandez was, and it's
yeah,
just funny to think about a couple years from there, Terry Allen was going to be a monster
Magnum.
star. Yeah, Magnum TA.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, I I love that. I love going back to the beginnings of things, you
Yeah,
know, and seeing and watching it, you know, play out. I love going back early in Dusty's career and
yeah,
well, you know, all those guys. You know,
yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
I
So
remember there was
go
a
ahead.
picture. I'm sorry, there was a
No,
picture in a magazine of Ric Flair early in his career when he was pretty beefy,
yeah, big
and he
heavy
had
dude.
like a tie dye headband on and tie
Yeah.
dye trunks, and I was like, what is he trying to do? Like, it was so
Yeah, it's you know, there's some amazing transformations that take place. Like
yeah.
one of the most amazing ones is Austin Idol.
Oh sure, yeah,
Before the plane crash, and then
yeah,
after, and then Flair before the plane crash and after. I mean,
yeah,
those
yeah,
are amazing. What they look like before, and then what they ended up, you know, looking like later. It's
yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah.
Kudos to those guys for working their butts off and getting themselves in that kind of condition. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely. I always
probably why they're
Austin.
still going.
Yeah, I mean Austin Idol's still on the NWA every once in a while.
Yeah,
He's still out there.
yeah. What do
That's
you think?
another show that I like.
I was going to
But
ask, what do you think about that show? Because I try to catch that. It's a YouTube, right?
it's on Roku now.
Roku. Oh, okay.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I try to
So
catch it every now and then because um, now I don't know if she's on there very often, but I try to catch it when Baby Doll's daughter's on there.
oh, is that
Nicola.
Samantha Starr?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, she manages La Princesa. What's her name? Tiffany Nieves.
Yeah.
She's on there pretty much every week.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Great
So,
talker.
so the next time you pop in some classic wrestling, what do you think it'll be based on what you like?
Oh man. So I I mean I love watching old AWA. That's usually what I go to. Or Memphis.
Man, I wish, and George and I have had this conversation many times. I wish there was more of the old AWA out there,
Yeah.
like the old studio show, the All Star Wrestling. That
Yeah,
none,
that was what I fell in love with in the beginning was the old All-Star Wrestling studio shows
and
before the Showboat and all that. Yeah.
those guys, all those guys in the territory days, just didn't keep it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, uh I saw an interesting article about the reason that there's no AWA wrestling on streaming,
hmm
or not AWA, I'm sorry, CWA, the old Memphis territory on
oh yeah,
streaming,
yeah, uh huh,
is because Jerry Jarrett didn't keep the footage.
right, right.
He just let it, so that all there is like stuff that people recorded at their
The
house.
stuff that mostly the stuff that Cornette recorded,
Yeah. Yeah, there's
and he tape traded out. You know,
right,
um,
right.
yeah, I used to tape trade for the old stuff back in the old days.
Yeah.
And you know if it weren't, that's another thing that's really a strong part of the there's so many interesting parts to the pro wrestling ecosystem,
Yeah.
and one of the parts to it is the tape traders.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
tape traders from the 1980s distributed so many great. I was telling somebody the other day the the Ric Flair Ted DiBiase match on Mid South Wrestling in November 1985, where he's attacked by Dick Murdoch and he comes back bloody and bandaged and has the match
Yeah.
and he's bleeding all over the that that was on a VHS tape that I got from another guy who always labeled everything based on the initials of the people that he got it from. So
Okay.
that was a Meltzer tape. So I
Wow.
remember on my VHS tape was DM33.
Oh
And
man, that's great.
DM33 had that and several other great things on it. But
Man.
1984, 85, 86, the only way to see that stuff was being a tape trader.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were guys that had thousands and thousands and thousands of tapes, you know. I had a really small collection. I still have mine.
Right. Right.
It's in like I lugged it down here from Missouri last year in five big roll carts
Nice.
that I will never open, but
Right.
I just can't get rid of it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got two VHS machines that work. I still have my own. I still have my old VHS copy machine that had two VCRs in it. That
Sure, sure. Yeah, I had one of those too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But when am I ever going to do that? You know, because
Right.
it's just too easy to take my mouse and click and
Yeah.
put
Just
it on my
watch.
television. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I
but the, but it was good that we had tape traders, you know,
yeah,
because
definitely.
they preserved a lot of that footage that we wouldn't have now.
Yeah, I remember getting a tape that had a documentary, a local news documentary on the Monster Factory. And it had JT Southern and Bam Bam Bigelow.
OJT, yep.
Yeah, when they were training, like before they, ever really had matches. I didn't even realize that JT Southern came from the Monster Factory. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was just it's crazy to find that stuff,
Yeah,
and
it's amazing. Speaking about your comment about Jerry not keeping stuff,
yeah, yeah,
it's amazing how much we have.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Literally, yeah.
we've got the entire 1980, 1981, 82, 83, and they didn't keep any of that stuff. It was just through, tape traders.
Yeah, yeah, that's wild. Who was it? The family, Adam Parsons, and
Yeah, Al Rock,
yeah,
his dad is
yeah, yeah. They had that little channel for a little while
yeah,
where they were
Jarrett
showing,
Parsons. Yeah.
yes, where they were showing a lot of that stuff, and that was fun. But
That they
then,
still do have a channel. I think
oh, do they?
I
Okay,
can't think of the name of it, and Adam's going to
okay.
kill me for it, but I can't remember what it is. We talked. Unfortunately, his father got sick, I think, and we never finished our conversation. I've been meaning to
Mhm.
call him and talk to
Yeah.
him, but we were going to tape some segments together
Oh, that would have
uh,
been fun.
for their video channel. And just
Okay.
making some historical comments and
I'll have to look into it and see if I can find it again.
because evidently he had some new discovered Tennessee stuff.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff on there.
there's some when they split, Jerry did his show in Memphis and Nick Goulas did his show in Nashville.
Right, right.
And one of the most fun feuds I went to in 1977 was Randy Savage and Dutch Mantell.
Yeah.
And they were, working around the territory, and that was fun. And man, if we could get all of those shows, the television around that feud, that would be a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
that'd be crazy. Dutch Mantel, he booked down in Puerto Rico, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember like really liking that Puerto Rico stuff. Um,
Oh, he's amazing.
yeah,
He's the reason he's so good, I think, is because he's simple.
yeah, yeah,
Like he will just have simple stories based, and of course, he's a Jerry Jarrett mentored guy.
right,
He learned under him, as did Lawler and Dundee. All three of those guys.
right.
All. I don't enjoy Lawler's booking as much as I enjoy Dundee and Mantell's, but
Yeah.
it's always really simple, but they have a knack of picking the right guys
Mhm.
for the story they're trying to get across.
Yeah,
And Dutch, he did that in Puerto Rico, and they drew big crowds, hot crowds,
right,
rock
right.
throwing crowds.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
it's
guess
funny.
they hated old Dutch down there pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I heard him talk about it before. It's pretty crazy. But it's funny talking about Lawler's booking. Uh, I feel like fans who complain about so I'm gonna roll this back to me a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
When I was running my company, my first champion was my best friend. Uh, really great wrestler, but also my best friend. The guy who took the belt
Sh-
off of him.
He was shoot best friend. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
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 best friend in the world, man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the guy who took the belt off of him was not my best friend, but a really, really good friend who I consider a brother. Um, and who had made a lot of improvements, and I really believed in him. My third champion was a young kid who I trusted, who I had booked uh, for his first ever main event. That's the kind of people that you put on top. So like when people complain about nepotism, or I feel like they don't really understand. Like during the territories, Jerry Lawler booked himself on top all the time, and no one was like, "Oh, Jerry Lawler's only on top because he's the booker."
Hmm.
You know, I think that fans, you put the people that you trust on top.
Yeah,
Just like Vern Gagne put himself, and then he put his brother-in-law. It's just like
sure,
that's how you do it. And then
sure.
you don't put people who can't do the job,
Well,
but if there's someone who can do the job who you trust,
and you know they're not going to leave you.
right? Exactly.
You know they're going to be reliable.
Yeah.
You know they can do what it is that you want to get across.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I always thought that was amazing when bookers would bring in guys they never met before, had never
Right.
worked with before, and they're investing trust in them to do this thing that they want done to draw people and draw
Yeah.
draw
Yeah.
money. I was talking to a local promoter not long ago, and I went to the show, and we're sitting there talking, and there's a kid in the ring who's working, and the crowd's behind him, and this, that, and the other. He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "Nobody really knows it." He goes, "But that's my son under that mask."
Nice.
He goes, and he works under a mask because I don't want anybody to know he's my son, but he's gonna be a star because no one knows that. They're not gonna hold that against him. He's gonna get there on his own, and no one's gonna know that I booked him that way because they don't know he's my son. And
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting the things that you try to do to protect the people that you care about because you do get that label.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense because wrestling's been like that forever.
Of course. And
Yeah.
and if you think
So,
about it, as a matter of fact, I just started a brand new series this month in the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel called Family Tradition.
yeah.
Because I
Sure.
look around and every company's a family almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense.
I mean,
To
I
me, it
I
just makes sense.
I did that series on Briscoe and Bradshaw about
Yeah.
the Welch family, and we just
Right.
had George Goulas on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's amazing how much negativity is around him
Hmm.
when there's not that much negativity around Mike Graham, or there's not that
Sure.
much negativity around Greg Gagne. Well, a little bit, but not a
A
whole
little bit.
lot.
Yeah.
There's not
Yeah.
that much negativity around the Funks. There's not that
Right.
much negativity around the Von Erichs. I mean, it sticks to some and doesn't to others.
Yeah. I think his son was Nick, right?
Nick was the dad, and
Oh, Nick
George
was
is
George
the son.
was the son.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I think I remember like George Goulas and people just thinking he wasn't very good. And I think that might be
Yeah,
why, you know?
I can tell you though, back in the
Yeah.
day, and I'm not saying he was the world's greatest because
Right.
I
Sure.
don't think he was, but what
Yeah.
I can tell you is he was over.
Yeah. And
I
that's what
mean,
matters.
I was a fan going to the shows, and people were cheering him just as much as they were cheering. Like if, and some of this is like he's teaming with Jackie Fargo, or he's teaming with Tojo Yamamoto, or
Sure.
whatever.
Sure.
But he also wrestled in some singles matches where people cheered him like a babyface.
There you
I
go.
mean, he was over,
Well, there you go.
and
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think unless you've ever worked in a family business, like I was, I hate the heavy, heavy, heavy criticism of Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I understand that she was a heel for a long time, and she also there's a lot of controversy around the family, and we'll get
Right.
into that. But
Right.
unless you've ever been a family member working in a family business, you don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in a family business. I was the CEO of a company that had a dad and six brothers as the owners.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a different deal. I mean,
That's scrutiny.
it's a really different thing.
Yeah.
And I heard one guy say, well, they said when they put her in the Hall of Fame that she worked her way up, and that's not true. And I'm like, how do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You weren't there.
Yeah.
And you've never worked in a family business. Sometimes it's harder on the family members than it is just Joe Blow out there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I can remember growing up working for my dad and my granddad, and all the other guys, they got to go home on Saturday afternoon, and I had to work into Saturday night because, well, you're family. you
Yeah.
know?
And you have to pass two tests. You have to pass the business test, but then you also have to pass the normal family test, like the dinner conversation. You know what I mean? You have to prove that you want it. I think more when you're
Well, yeah,
when
there's
it's
there's there's a lot of expectations that are placed on you
yeah.
by the other generations.
Yep.
I definitely had that growing up. And I disappointed my family because I didn't want to be in the family business. I wanted to go do something else, which I eventually did. But there's a little bit different pressure to that than unless you've experienced it, you don't know. And a lot of it goes back to what you were talking about with your friend.
Mhm.
Family, for the most part, can be depended on.
Yeah.
And so you get the odd jobs, you get the tough things, you get the overtime, you get well, your family, you're going to be here. We can count on you. So you're going to do the cleanup after the show, or you're going to do the, whatever it is, stocking the shelves or whatever it is. You're going
Yeah.
to get the crap jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny too thinking about that. So I remember Apollo and I were having a conversation. That was my friend,
Yeah.
um, about bringing in a bigger name to work with a different guy on the show. And he got so mad. He was like, "You never give me anything."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Well, that's because I felt like I didn't need to. I felt like I had made him the star. So I bring in somebody else to elevate someone else. Like he didn't need elevating."
Right.
And that was something, that he obviously wasn't happy with. I
Right.
never even thought about it.
Well, right. Yeah.
I put
Right.
him, yeah, yeah. I didn't
Well,
need him
that's
to
that's
work with.
another that's another added additional dimension to being the boss
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that employees always see things that you never thought about. You didn't intend for them to feel that way. You didn't intend for them to have that perception, but you can't be the all knowing, all seeing Oz all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And the other thing is, thank goodness he felt close enough to you and had a strong enough relationship to have the conversation.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
lot of
Yeah.
people would have just held a grudge and walked away. You
Yeah.
know,
No,
oh, well, he just doesn't appreciate me at all. He never gives me anything. I'm just going to do something else.
yeah.
At
Yeah.
least he came to you and said, hey, man, I'm feeling slighted. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. We don't have that kind of a relationship. And that's another reason why, it makes sense to
that's
put
why you
somebody.
booked him the way you booked
Yeah.
him.
Exactly. Because I know that he's gonna tell me, he's gonna talk to me. So
Yeah.
um
And that's the, I have this all the time, conversation all the time. I have clients who like, well, I have this really close relationship with this person, but I just don't feel like I can have this conversation. I'm like, man, that is when you should have that conversation and you should feel like you can because you have a close relationship. There should be enough trust there that you can handle the conflict.
yeah, for sure.
If there's not, then you don't have the kind of relationship you think you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So something that I wanted to make sure that we talked about.
All right.
Um what do you think like modern wrestling and modern wrestling fans could learn from the territory days?
Gosh, man, I'm not sure because I mean I tend to think of it in transitions, right? So
Yeah.
I think about the days where wrestling was territorial based on radio,
Okay.
and window posters. I mean
Okay.
that's what they had, and that was what they were limited to, and they were limited to cars. Wrestlers being able to travel to a certain distance in a day.
Yeah.
you know and then we got the television transition that basically created the geographical boundaries of the territories, and then we went to national expansion, and now we've gone global.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're taking wrestling to every part of the world, which in that part makes me very, very happy
Yeah.
that people in China and these Mongolia and these places can see what was. It wasn't necessarily, we can't take all the credit for it, but wrestling really grew here.
Yeah.
I mean, in the
Yeah.
United States. I mean,
That's
it's an exported thing, you know. I mean, we helped build wrestling in Japan and these other places, and that makes me very, very happy. And I think you can always learn something from studying history.
yeah.
I'm not sure though that I don't know. I mean, I think different things. I don't know what the fans can learn from it because there's such a contrast between that era and the current era. But I
Right.
think the current promoters and bookers and talents can learn a whole lot from it.
Yeah.
Like I think you can get inspired by just putting in a Roddy Piper interview, you know, or putting in a Vern Gagne wrestling match, or putting in something, and you're like, hey, I think I can do that hold, and I don't think that hold has been anywhere around any place in years, and I think I can get that hold over. I mean, those are things I think can be learned. For the fans, I think it's just it's sort of like going to your local library. You can learn a lot based on what you're interested in. You know, I mean, I think if you're, I mean, I remember I try to put myself in the current fans' place.
Yeah.
When my grandfathers were trying to tell me about the wrestling of their time, it wasn't really that interesting to me
Right.
because I was watching Randy Savage. I mean, Randy Savage in 1979. I mean, I'm talking about Randy Savage pre WWF when, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, when he in 77 with the Dutch that we talked about. I mean,
Yeah.
when he was taking a whole lot more chances and doing a whole lot more wacky, crazy stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Lou Thez seemed boring to me. Like I wasn't really, you know, that into it. I couldn't wait until 1981 when Terry Funk came to Tennessee. Like I wanted to go see that. You know, that was what I was interested. I wasn't really that interested in Gorgeous George, you
Right.
know? And so I think as you get older though, and as you mature, you get more interested in the history. You get more interested depending on when you became a fan. You are interested in 10 to 20 years before you became a fan and then up to whatever you're watching today.
Right.
You know, I don't know. There's a small group of us that are interested in 1926. We're
Yeah.
interested in Stecker. You
Yeah.
know, we're interested in the screw jobs that were done in 1936.
Man. Yeah.
Not everybody is. You know,
Yeah.
I think they're, you know, I think there's some nostalgia out there for the fan who's like, wow, what was the first WrestleMania like? Like that
Right.
was the beginning of wrestling. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a complicated question. I don't know if I answered it for you, but
I don't know. I think you did. um, so if you had to pick like one territory that you feel the strongest about, or that you know you really have a fondness for, which one would it be?
well, I mean, I'm biased to Tennessee because that's where I grew up and that's where I learned about wrestling. That's where I discovered wrestling. That's where, you know, the Welch family and the Goulas family, the Goulas Welch Wrestling Company is just firmly burned into my soul because that's, you know, Jackie Fargo and Don Green and the Heavenly Bodies and Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto and the Von Brauners and all of that is just that's my concrete foundation, you know. Um, but after that, it's Amarillo. I mean, I've just done so much research and I'm so immersed into the West Texas territory from its beginnings in the late 20s until it, you know, went away in 1980. Um,
Yeah.
and it died a terrible death.
Yeah.
Um, and that, you know, and I'm amazed at how many West Texas territory Amarillo fans are still out there. I mean, they freaking love it, man.
Yeah.
And I hear from one or two of them a week, like, "Wow, it's a book coming. Oh, when's the book coming out?" You know,
Yeah.
and I've been on some of their podcasts and stuff, and so, you know, probably, you know, the answer would be Amarillo after Tennessee.
Okay.
But I mean, Georgia's interesting to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Florida's interesting to me. The Crockett's, I mean, I really was in my early 20s when the Crockett's got on TBS, and
Yeah.
I went to three Great American Bash shows in 1986. I saw the Dusty title win in Greensboro over Flair in a cage.
Oh,
I was at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis. There were only like 1,000 of us, but I was one of those people. And um, so the Crockett history is really interesting to me. I met David Crockett last year and have
oh
had
wow.
some conversations with him at the Hall of Fame in Waterloo, and it's all interesting to me now. But I'm
Yeah.
like, gosh,
Yeah.
if we ever discover those, if they're out there, Amarillo tapes,
Yeah.
that'd be my holy grail.
Somebody's gonna find them.
That'd be my
uh,
holy grail.
yeah. It's interesting how the Crockett promotion ended up representing the NWA.
Hmm.
Like they became the NWA once they got TV.
Yeah, somebody just asked me about that.
Yeah.
A couple guys were doing I'm going in the Hall of Fame in Waterloo in June, and
Oh, congratulations.
was interviewed for that. A couple guys
Yeah.
in Waterloo have a podcast, and they were asking me about how that happened.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you're interested in it, but
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So in 1975, when Sam Mushnick, at the end of 1975, at the NWA convention in August of that year, he retired, and they had talked him into staying several times. And so what hurt the NWA more than anything else was a lack of a succession plan. They never had a replacement for Sam Mushnick. So in 1976, Fritz von Erich is elected president. Fritz is a tremendous wrestler, great local promoter in Dallas,
Yeah.
terrible manager. I mean, terrible administrator. I mean, you couldn't pick someone who, if Sam Mushnick was your ideal NWA president who could work with all these various personalities and people and get them all to agree and to get them to get along, Fritz was not the guy.
Right.
And so Eddie Graham was the next guy. And probably when Eddie Graham and Sam Mushnick got to be really close from the late 60s through the early 70s, I'm sure Sam thought that eventually Eddie would be able to keep the NWA in its greatness.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, during that 1975-76 period, Eddie started drinking again.
Yeah.
And when he became president in 1977, he couldn't even finish the whole term because he had health issues and he had problems. And so they ended up having to, it fails me right now to remember exactly who replaced him. But I mean, we ended up with Bob Geigel and Jim Crockett Jr.
Sure.
And that's weak as far as leaders go. So Fritz and Eddie, when he wasn't at his best, and then Jim Crockett Jr. and then Bob Geigel.
Right.
I mean, Flair talked about it in his book about calling Geigel from a town where they wanted him to do something and he didn't want to do it. And Bob's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" I mean, so
Yeah.
that was the antithesis of what Sam Mushnick was.
Right.
And when you look back, nothing against the champions who were champions after Sam, but if
Mhm.
you look at the champions when Sam was the president, you know, you had college graduates who were very accomplished wrestlers who were
Right.
using their real names.
Right.
They weren't gimmicks. They were they had to lift themselves to the standard of the NWA world title.
Yeah. Yeah.
There would never in a million years have been a four horsemen in Sam Mushnick's time
Right. Sure.
because he wouldn't have cheapened the title by having it saved by outside interference all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. All the disqualifications.
Right.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And that's not to say anything. I'm not talking bad about the horsemen or anything like that. I'm just saying this is what happened.
Yeah.
And so by the time, I mean, you had I call that period fragmentation from 1975 to 1985. because territories in the NWA were starting to get fragmented. They were starting to die off. San Francisco closed, Los Angeles closed. You had Hawaii running very, very sporadically, mostly in the summertime, sometimes not for years at a time. You had Georgia disintegrating. Crockett absorbs Georgia. Kansas City's barely operating. Portland's still in business. Amarillo goes out of business. So you have all these territories dying off until you only have about 4 or 5 left by the time the period you're talking about. So when Crockett, they basically were the NWA, and they absorbed. They actually never bought Kansas City. They just sort of absorbed it. They I don't know if it was a buy sell agreement or a buy lease agreement or a what, but they tried to work out a deal where they were running St. Louis and Kansas City and that whole area, and Florida, and so except with the exception of Fritz left. So Fritz left the NWA and started the world class title. So I always think about that too when people go, well, if David Von Erich would have become champion, and I'm thinking, champion of what?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he wasn't going to go to work for Crockett.
Right.
He wasn't going to leave his dad.
Right.
So there really was not, Flair after 85 or so, he wasn't traveling anymore. He was just working the Crockett territory.
Right.
And and here's another little remembrance I have. We were talking about the Bash in '86. When they were booking the Bash in '86, it was like, and Ric Flair is going to face 13 opponents, a different opponent every night. And
Right.
I thought that's what the NWA champion has always done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's special about that?
Yeah.
But by that time, it was only Crockett guys, and Crockett was going national. So, and then I think when Jim sold out to Ted Turner, they didn't really care that much about the NWA. They took the name of the Saturday night show and made it
the
World Championship Wrestling, which was an old Jim Barnett company name.
Right. Right.
But that's what happened. It disintegrated like the territories did eventually. So I guess it was still in operation because there was a lawsuit over when Flair took the title to the WWF. I guess the NWA, filed a lawsuit, and Turner claimed they owned it, and the NWA board, whatever was left of them, and I guess it survived all the way up and still survives with Billy Corrigan. But
Sure.
But it had some lean years there where it really wasn't that influential.
Yeah, the lineage is definitely split, to say the least. I remember when uh they started a new partnership with the with WCW, and they created, or they brought the NWA world title in, but it only lasted a couple months. And then somehow WCW ended up keeping the belt and renaming it the International title. It's just a big mess.
I remember when I got the tape as a tape trader. I remember getting the tape of ECW when Shane Douglas threw it in the trash.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like, I'm not watching this anymore.
Yeah,
because I was such an NWA guy, and I still am. And I'm just like, I can't. That's wrong. That's wrong. Now I know it's kayfabe and it's all a shoot or
right.
It's a work and all, but I don't know. I mean, when you grew up with it, and you were a kid, and you probably were never going to see the NWA champion because he probably wasn't going to come to a town near enough to you when you grew up in the sticks like I did.
Right.
And Terry Funk is on the cover of every wrestling magazine, and you want to see him, but you're probably not going to see him because Memphis is 3.5 hours away, and he's probably not going to come to Evansville.
Right.
But the excitement about what that title was, in that time, there's just never been and never will be another world title like it.
Yeah, I don't think fans now understand that. Like, I'm always, I know there's a lot of people who are excited for Randy Orton to win a couple more and break the world record or whatever. But to me, there's such a huge difference between holding the title 16 times when each title reign was like 6 months,
Right.
you know? Like back when I was watching wrestling, the champ would have a grip on that belt and he would have it for years.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean,
I remember trying to I remember my goal was as a tape trader, I want every NWA title change that was ever filmed. Like
wow.
I remember trading all kinds of things and this, that, and the other, trying to get the Baba title win and trying to
Yeah.
get the Dusty win in the Omni and all of that because it was huge. A
Yeah.
title change was huge.
Yeah.
But in the '90s and the 2000s when they just started swapping it every other week, I mean it
Yeah.
just,
It just, and to me, it doesn't feel the same.
and there's just so many of them. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many titles and
Yeah.
back then, I mean, we had, we had the NWA World Title, which you maybe saw, and that's another thing. Modern fans, just in perception, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
modern fans think of Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or that champion as a part timer
Yeah.
because they don't see him very often.
Right.
Heck, back in when I was growing up, we never saw him. I mean, we
Yeah.
never saw the world champion. I mean,
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
world, I remember when Flair was on Memphis television in 1982, I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, because we didn't get Crockett TV and all of that. And so
Yeah.
when that tape played in Evansville of that Lawler confrontation in the
Yep.
Memphis studio, I'm just like,
Yep.
wow, this is awesome,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you never saw the champion on television and you rarely saw him because they only came to your arena twice a year, maybe.
Right. Right. And I mean, you know, back back home, uh, it was primarily AWA and WWF that I got to see. Hulk Hogan was never on TV.
Right.
You know, the big show, Saturday Night's Main Event, you know, sometimes uh Bockwinkel and Hansen and Martel, Hennig, Zabisco, they would defend the AWA World Title on TV every once in a while, but not.
They didn't really defend it in the arenas that much,
Yeah,
maybe 6 times a month.
yeah.
And
So,
you weren't going to Denver,
right, yeah, absolutely not.
you know.
Yeah,
It's just different perceptions,
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it was a huge deal. It really was. The title was a huge deal,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
wrestler had to live up to it.
yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
now I think they used the title to try to make the wrestler.
Right, right. Whereas before it was,
It was a standard that was really high,
you had to hit that level, and then
and
you became.
again, that was a Mushnick thing. I mean, he wouldn't allow screw job finishes. He wouldn't allow anything but the champion to go over.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're the champion, you should win. I
right,
mean, you
right.
should pin the guy. But in the course of the match, you need to look beatable.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah,
And that was, Dory Funk Jr., he's my favorite NWA champion. And that was one of his big strengths is he always looked like he could get beat.
yeah, yeah. I I loved Harley Race because I just felt like he was so well rounded. Um, but Race, I mean, he'd always come in, toughest guy in the world, but
Well,
he,
it's also it's a product of the times.
yeah, yeah,
Like for me when Dory Funk Jr. was the champion, which I was just becoming a fan,
yeah,
the Vietnam War was coming to an end, and this pro-American movement was starting. We were only a couple years away from the bicentennial, and here's this young kid from Texas who's got the Texas jacket on, or maybe the West Texas jacket, and
yeah,
he was a college athlete. And he's a young, clean-cut Texan and real American, and I don't know. I can't describe unless you were there. I can't describe what it was like to have a
yeah,
world champion like that. There was just, and that's why Senior didn't want Briscoe to beat him, is because he didn't want another NCAA champion beating Dory Jr.
mm,
Because he thought it was going to take away from that college athlete persona that had been built up. He was champion for 3.5 years.
Right, right, right.
And there was, I mean, I don't know. It's just like I say, it's just hard to describe unless you were there and you were in the context of it. Whereas I can see for when you came along as a fan, it would be more of a Harley who
Yeah,
was champion for quite some time and was very tough
yeah,
and faced a lot of different challengers.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of it too, like, I'm a kid, I'm buying into it. Like, he's
Yeah,
sitting there telling you that he is the best wrestler on God's green earth. And then he's going out and he's taking his beatings, but he's tough enough that he's coming back and he's winning. I
yeah,
believe that.
yeah,
I
right.
believe that,
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
mean, it's
like
just,
there's a difference in studying things and learning things and actually experiencing them.
yeah,
Like I cannot I mentioned this before. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Lou Thez.
yeah,
I cannot feel what it was like during the time he was the champion. But I would imagine in the mid 1950s when he had been champion for as long as he was and he was revered. I mean, when I go back and read newspaper articles about the champion coming to town and how revered he was, he's in there alongside the boxers of the day,
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
on equal ground. And Thez, and that was another thing, when Dory Funk Jr. came to town, the news people went out to the airport.
right, right, right.
Like the NWA champion has landed.
Yeah,
He's in our town and he's going to defend the title tonight.
right,
And it was on the regular sports cast of your local network television station.
right, right.
Man, that was
That's,
a big deal.
yeah, yeah. And people, they just can't understand it,
No, they weren't there.
Yeah,
They
right.
didn't
It's
experience it.
you have to be there to really feel what it was like.
I know John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and I know he was shot, but I don't know what it was like on that day.
Yeah, it's crazy because that affected my mom
Yeah,
so deeply.
mine too.
Yeah, I mean, to
My
this
gra-
day.
my grandparents were one of the few people that had televisions in our little town.
Yeah.
And my English teacher in high school, she told me she was in high school when John F. Kennedy was shot, and they walked down to my grandmother's house so they could watch it on television.
Oh wow.
Like I don't know what that was like.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah.
Like just like your son doesn't know what it was like on 9/11.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And that's just something we have to just sort of reckon with
Yeah.
when we study these things and we think about them and we try to Mount Rushmore them, which I try not to do because I just think there has to be, if you're going to do it, it has to be in eras.
Yeah.
It has to be in time frames.
Yeah.
There's no way to do an all time. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's too wide, varied, too many styles, too many great guys and girls.
Yeah. Yeah. People always ask me, like things like that, like your all-time favorite tag teams or whatever. And it's like you look at the guys now and you see the moves that they do and the precision that they do them with and it's but none of them are Bobby and Stan to me.
Well,
That's
that's one
just
of
how it is,
that's
It's
that's one
just
of the
like
reasons that I started doing my this last New Year's. I did the top 100 wrestlers in 1975, and I started at 100 and went all the way down to one because it reminded me of the old music countdown shows that
yeah,
you would listen to of the top hits of the year. And I thought that's really the only fair way for me to do it because a guy who might be in the top five in 1975 might never make the all-time list.
sure,
But
sure.
in that year, in that time frame, Jack Briscoe was the stuff, man.
Yeah,
You know.
for sure. Yeah. So wanted to make sure that I got in one more thing.
Sure, man. Whatever.
Out
I
of
just enjoy spending time with you, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, this is I love listening to your stories, man. I think it's cool how like one little kernel, one little nugget, and you can just expand on it, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's just my mom's Southern gift of gab, I suppose.
Well, it's I love listening to it,
Thanks,
man.
man. What
You're
you want to
welcome.
say?
Yeah, so out of all the research that you've done and the people that you've talked to or that you've had on your podcast, who are some of the people that stick out either for their knowledge or their stories or because you were a huge fan of them? Like who just some of the people that you've gotten to talk to, like that was is sort of a special conversation.
Yeah. Um, Dottie Curtis.
Okay.
Of course, she was married to the great Don Curtis, who showed up in Amarillo, Texas in the late 50s. Don Beetleman, a All-American from Buffalo, Buffalo, and they changed his name. They said Don Beetleman won't get over in Amarillo. We're going to change your name to Don Curtis. And her stories about living there in Amarillo and living in the same apartment building as Dory Funk Jr. when he was a young newlywed and had young children, and telling me about Mark Lewin and Don Curtis's tag team and going to Madison Square Garden in New York and feuding with Eddie Graham and Dr. Jerry Graham and then going to Florida and becoming a promoter for Eddie Graham in Jacksonville. And I actually have, can I show something?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
She told me a story about Don. He went to an NWA convention one year, and Don was so talented. I mean, he was very, very talented. And one of the things he was talented at was he was a talented cartoonist. So he's sitting in this NWA meeting with all the promoters in the NWA, and he got bored with the meeting and started drawing cartoons of them. And she sent it to me. So
That is so cool.
that's Dory Funk right there. And that's Dory Funk's brother, Herman Gust Funk,
Yeah,
who worked in the office. But all the people knew him as Herman Gust. They never knew he was
knew it was a
Dory's.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. But they're all on here, and
That's awesome.
she sent it to me as a gift because she loved our conversation.
That's amazing, man.
And I told her, I
Wow.
said, "Well, I'm moving down to Kentucky. I bought a little ranch next door to my mom."
Yeah.
And I'm going to live next door to my mom. And when I get down there, I'm going to have a little office where I do my podcast and stuff, and I'm going to put that up in my office. And as you can see, it's not hung yet,
Yeah. But it'll get there.
but I keep it here because Dottie was such a great lady and has experienced so much as the wife of one
Yeah.
of the great stars and promoters. And I love that conversation, and I still talk with her, probably every 2 or 3 months or so.
That's awesome, man.
She's awesome. And then if I had to name somebody that I never got to talk to, but I'm just
Yeah.
fascinated by their life, is Frankie Kane.
Okay.
Scott Teal wrote 2 books, and those books are just his conversations with Frankie. It's
Okay.
just Scott asked, just like you and I are having here.
Yeah.
And I read those books, and it just reminds me why I'm a historian,
Yeah.
because there's things in there that Frankie talks about from the 1930s all the way up through the 1990s that we would never know if
Yeah.
Scott didn't write them down
Yeah.
and Frankie didn't tell them.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated. I keep those books by my bed, and I will just open one and just read a little bit of it before bedtime, or maybe in the middle of the night when I wake up. I'm a terrible sleeper.
Yeah.
Um, but I wish I would have gotten to talk to Frankie. He was a fascinating guy. I did a special podcast when he passed away with Scott about him. But those old timers, we're losing them. We gotta honor them, and we gotta talk with them. Those that have gone on, we got to keep their memory alive, and those that we still have, we have to treasure them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, man. So Tony, first of all, thank you for the work that you do. Like,
Thank
I
you, man.
love the way that you treat pro wrestling. Um, like, like you talked about how Luthez would be in the papers with the boxers. I feel like when I read your newsletter, it's presented in that kind of a way. You know, it's a serious chronologization of wrestling as a historical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it, man. It's
Well,
so awesome.
I try to work that ingredient into everything we do. Like Steve Gennarelli and Howard Baum and those guys, they're always talking about how our Facebook group is like it isn't for every wrestling fan because there's not a lot of hoo-ha going on in there. You know,
Yeah, there's definitely
there. It's a serious conversation about the history of wrestling,
yeah,
and it's people talking about their real life experiences or their memories or those kinds of things. And I just don't. I'm not interested in the gaga. You know,
yeah,
I'm not interested in the jokes and the. I left, and one of the reasons I did it is because I left a lot of Facebook groups because I was offended. I'm like,
sure,
man, you're treating this thing that I care about, you're just butchering it and making fun of it. And
yeah.
like, if you dislike it so much,
Why?
why don't you find something that you do like? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So I appreciate you saying that because that's exactly what I want to present it as.
yeah. I mean, to me, like when I found your newsletter, I don't even know how to. I just part of the reason why I reached out to you is because of my admiration for what you write
Well,
and how
thanks,
you
man.
write it and how you present it, man. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I get encouraged and I get very, very honored that I have serious sports writers who read my newsletter
That's awesome.
and
Yeah,
they consider it to be kind of the same thing they do when they're writing about baseball or football or any other sport. And I want to present it that way. I want to
yeah,
present it as, these guys, no matter what you think, this was a sports based performance art,
yeah. Absolutely.
just like the music business or just like movies or just like television. These guys participated in something that was a mix between the movie business and a sport,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it was a traveling show.
Yep.
And yes, it was yes, it was a work, I guess you
Yep.
could say.
Sure.
But man, the miles and the blood and the pain and the cripples and the joint pain and all that were real and still are real.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that deserves to be respected.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
And
So
not everybody can do it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. But
I know people think because they can talk that they could do an interview like somebody that we admire who was a great interview. But
yeah,
it's different when you walk out there and somebody shoves a microphone in your face and you're like, sell some tickets. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. It's I so I was getting ready to wrap things up, but now you just made me think about my
that's all
own
right.
personal
I got
experiences.
I got time, man.
Cool, man. I hate like I'm a performer. I've been in rock bands. I've been on TV, whatever.
Yeah, me
But
too. Me too.
when I'm running a show, I hate going out there as a character uh because I just don't. There's so much other stuff going on. I don't feel like I can commit to it because it's a different thing. You really have to be present to get out there and really convey whatever you're trying to convey to those
Yeah,
fans.
you have to become that person
Yeah,
that you're trying to get across, that you're trying to portray,
yeah,
just like Robert Duvall does.
yeah,
When Robert Duvall walks on the set of Lonesome Dove, he has to become McRae,
yep, yeah,
and he has to lose himself in that. And not everybody can do that.
yeah,
It's a very unique talent, especially the greats. The ones who, and there were a lot of greats that have been forgotten, and I want to remember them and honor them.
yeah. Well, personally, I think you do a fantastic job, man.
And
So
Keith, that means the world to me. I'm extremely grateful that you say that, and I appreciate you having me on your show. And
yeah,
when somebody has me on their podcast, I feel like they're inviting me into their home. And so thank you so much for having me over today.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, man. If there's anything you want to talk about, I mean, we talked about your book, but if you want to let people know where they can find you
Yeah, sure.
and what you got coming up and
I
going
feel like
on.
this is pretty easy because I feel like I say this part all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our hub is the Substack channel, and I feel like one of the main reasons I won the Melby Award this year in Waterloo and I'm going into the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame is because I'm on Substack and I'm not the traditional published book author. I'm doing some stuff that hasn't really been done a lot with wrestling history. I'm doing it on an email newsletter and the things that Substack represents, which I think a lot of people really have and have not experienced it. But if you haven't, come over to Substack. I think you'll like the app. I think you'll like the environment. And I hope you like what I do. If you do, you can subscribe. The newsletter is free. If you want to contribute to my work as a historian, you can subscribe as a premium subscriber, which is $5 a month. If you want to save $10 a year, it's $50. And you'll get my newsletter every single morning at 5 a.m. And you'll get our podcast that we do every Wednesday. And right now we're doing the 1976 territories. And we just did Florida. We're about to do Georgia. We're about to do Jim Crockett Promotions. We're about to do Amarillo. We just got that going. For the first part of the year, we did 1985. And for most of the rest of this year, we'll do 1976. We've got a Facebook group, Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. You can follow me on X, which used to be Twitter, which is probably my largest community. That's at Tony Richards 4. I'm on Instagram with a few people here and there. And then we got a YouTube channel where we post our show, much like you do here in the Most Excellent Entertainment. And we publish a clip of our previous shows and things we're doing almost every day in the YouTube channel as well. You can also find me. I'm the official historian for Jerry Briscoe and John Bradshaw Layfield on Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. And so you can find a Dory Funk in-depth episode there. You can find a series on Jim Barnett there. You can find a series on the Welch family. And I'm working on a new series that will be coming out here late May, early June. With those guys that we haven't released yet. And I also want to invite you to come to Waterloo this year in June in Waterloo, Iowa, to the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, which I love this Hall of Fame. It's sort of like the way you say I present wrestling. It's got an amateur section with the greatest amateur wrestlers of all time in the Hall of Fame, and it's got a pro section with the greatest pros of all time. And it's a great combination. And I'll be going in the Hall of Fame this year along with several other great people like James Beard. Ken Resnick is going to be there. You would have loved Ken back in the day in the AWA broadcast. Jeff Jarrett is going to go in. I'm very, very excited. Jimmy Garvin's going to be going in. I'm excited about the Welch family going in as a family to the Hall of Fame. Ron Fuller, the Tennessee Stud's going to be there to accept. He's going to have Roy Lee Welch there, who's Lester Welch's son. And I'm going to be doing a session at Waterloo this year on wrestling history that we haven't announced what the contents of it's going to be, but if you know me, it's going to be interesting. So that's on Saturday afternoon at 2:30 during the Hall of Fame weekend. We're going to have a celebrity softball game, John Bradshaw Layfield versus Medusa. And so there might be a brawl. So
Awesome.
I've said if John goes out there and tries to clothesline Medusa, I may have to do a run-in.
That's awesome.
So it's a lot of fun. I mean, we have such a great time when we're together. We have a lot of fun on the show, and I wish people could see our text messages. They're hilarious. Jerry always texts John and spells Texas Texas.
That's hilarious. Nice.
So I don't know. I think that's about everything. I
Okay.
mean, but that's all my stuff. And
All right.
if I missed anything, somebody will remind me once this comes out. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's been great. I really appreciate
Has
you
been.
having
Yeah.
me
Thank you.
over, and I'd be glad to come back anytime. And I'll have to have you come over to the time tunnel sometime.
Oh yeah. I'd be honored, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, you
Great.
come over and be on, and we'll have a conversation. Let everybody know about your show. And
Okay.
I
I
just had
appreciate it.
John Mayer McCall on the Wrestling Talk. He's a big Memphis guy, and
Yeah.
he's actually shutting his podcast down. So I wanted to have him on so everybody could hear his last 3 or 4 episodes. But
Right.
you're not. You're going to keep
Nope.
going,
I'm
and
still going,
we're
man.
going to
Yeah.
have you. We'll have you over to talk about the Most Excellent Entertainment show.
I appreciate that, man. All
Well,
right.
man, listen, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And I want to go ahead and do my thing now.
Okay,
So
yeah,
yeah, Tony, thank you so much. I think I think the world of what you do, man, and I appreciate you spending some time with me here. And I really hope that my listeners got as much out of the conversation as I did. Um, Thank you to everybody who listens every single week. I appreciate you guys. We're going on 2 years at this point. Should be moving into our third year pretty soon. So
cool.
yeah, and I think I
Keep
appreciate
going,
Nate.
man.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I appreciate Nate, the new producer who we've had here now for a couple months. He had some health issues, and that's why there wasn't
Oh
a
yeah.
show last week.
We're glad
But
Nate's
yeah,
better. Yeah.
yeah. Nate's a trooper, man. He's got a lot of
We can't do it without Nate.
yeah, absolutely. I
I
mean,
I
we
got
can
a
do it. It
great
won't be
I
as
got a great
smooth.
producer too, man. They're worth their
Yeah,
weight in gold.
yeah, for sure. Producers are the ones who make sure this thing happens. To be completely honest, like when Nate was in the hospital, no show.
I
So
oh
yeah,
I text mine all the time. I'm like, dude, it's you're the best in the business. I appreciate you. You know.
for sure, man. And yeah, I just next week we'll be back where we always are with more most excellent entertainment.
Come on back, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let me. All right.